Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you so much for joining us today for today's webinar, Get Started on Your Path to Employment. Today's webinar is brought to you by the Rochester Regional Center for Autism Spectrum Disorder. And for those of you who are new to joining us, we are actually a program, one of many, within the Strong Center for Developmental Disabilities here at the University of Rochester. We are housed in the Division of Developmental and Behavioral Pediatrics, but we do serve individuals across the lifespan. Today I have the honor of introducing Caitlin Richardson, who's our Director of Employment Programs, as well as our Policy Extraordinaire here at the Strong Center for Developmental Disabilities. So just in terms of context, let me give you a little background about our program, the Rochester Regional Center for Autism Spectrum Disorder. We are one of 7 in New York State, so you'll see those 12 counties highlighted in blue are our jurisdiction area. Our headquarters are located in Albany, and the main goal of our regional centers for autism is community education and technical assistance around autism spectrum disorder and related disabilities. So our webinar series is one of those. And next up, coming up in Wednesday, April 18th, our next webinar will be Coping and Problem Solving Strategies for Youth with Autism Spectrum Disorder, and that will be with Linda Maytons, who's part of our community consultation program. Just some housekeeping before we pass it off to Caitlin will be to feel free to use your chat box for any questions. So we'll go through that PowerPoint together and then open it up for discussion and questions at the end. So we welcome your comments, your questions, your feedback. And then following today's webinar, everybody will be receiving an email with a link to our website that will have a recording of today's presentation as well as the PowerPoint slides. So feel free to share those with colleagues, and you'll also receive a link with an evaluation survey. So we welcome your feedback, especially future topics that you're interested in, so that we can coordinate those for future webinars as well. And we're always looking to improve these presentations, so any feedback you have for us, we'd greatly appreciate it. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Caitlin Richardson, and we'll be talking about many different resources today in terms of employment, and I hope you enjoy it. Thanks so much.
Hi, everyone, and I just want to thank the Regional Center for having me on today. I have the pleasure of sitting right across the hall from the staff. So we have a number of opportunities to collaborate, but this is my first webinar for the Regional Center series, so I'm so excited to be here with you today. And like Valerie said, if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat box and I'll try to get those answered. So as Val said, I have a number of resources and ideas to share with you, but I wanted to start with a video. I think it does a really good job of talking about inclusive hiring and kind of grounding us in what we're talking about today in terms of employment for people with disabilities. So I'm going to play this video and then we'll get into the bulk of the presentation here.
Individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities makes good business sense. The City of Rochester is a leader in New York State in its efforts to support competitive, integrated employment for all, including individuals with disabilities.
It also shows that we're an inclusive city, that we are not excluding anyone because of their education or their background, and we have to lead by example. And leading by example is making sure that everyone has the opportunity to participate in the economic recovery of our community.
The City of Rochester is a very inclusive organization. So we serve a very diverse community. So it's good business sense for the City of Rochester and for any employer in the City of Rochester to include people with intellectual disabilities as part of their workforce.
There are a number of benefits to hiring individuals with disabilities. Not only are there tax incentives, but business leaders are quickly learning that this pool of highly talented individuals is able to meet their business needs and improve culture within their organizations. Inclusive hiring pushes companies and government agencies to think of new ways of doing business and to work as a team to establish a diverse workforce.
Having an inclusive culture is good for not only our employees, but for the environment and also for the community that we serve.
This is a population of individuals that can be very productive if we give them the tools and the training to allow them to enter into the workforce. So we feel that it's part of service to our community to add this value to our community by including these individuals as part of our workforce.
I would say to another business leader that not only is it beneficial to you and to your employees, but it's beneficial to the community as a whole because you get a great worker. These individuals show up to work on time. They love being there. They're enthusiastic. You don't want to close the door on them because of their limitations. You want to open it wide and give them the opportunity to perform.
We hope that you will call us to learn more about our many training programs and that you will consider hiring an individual with an intellectual or developmental disability in your workforce. Thank you.
So like I said, I think that video does a really good job of starting the conversation and start us thinking about why inclusive employment is important for a number of different stakeholders that we'll be talking about today. So to continue the conversation, I just wanted to talk about why it's important to talk about employment for people with disabilities in general. Employment really, it seems silly to have to ground us in this and talk about this, but it really determines income. It determines financial independence and gives people the opportunity to, live in their community and make decisions. And it's really important. It influences many aspects of health, both physical and mental health. It facilitates social inclusion. I know we have some school folks on the phone, and we talk all day about inclusion in school, but it's important after school as well. Really, I'm involved in a number of programs, and I get to kind of be a boots on the ground person sometimes, and enhanced self-esteem and quality of life all come with community employment. So I couldn't be a stronger advocate or think that it's so very important to give people with all abilities the opportunity to engage in the workforce. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. So I also really like to show this slide when I start conversations because there is an employment gap between people with disabilities and their non-disabled peers in terms of employment. So in New York, our statistics are not that much different than the national stage. This one on the left here is percent employed, and it's 18 to 21-year-olds. And the blue line there is no disability, and then green and red are cognitive disabilities. And so you can see about a 20% gap for that age group in terms of employment. And then when we talk about 22 to 30-year-olds, you can see that gap almost doubles. So we're going to talk about the importance of work-based learning type opportunities in schools because it's really, research says it's critically important for individuals with disabilities to engage in employment type opportunities when they're in school because it's a predictor of employment down the road. So when we're talking about addressing the employment gap, we're trying to minimize the gap and the differences between disability categories and no disability. And it's possible, and that we know that with supports, people with disabilities can fully engage in the workforce in our community. So Employment First is a national movement, and New York State is engaged in this movement. So Governor Cuomo in 2014 released a report and recommendations that kind of outlined the belief that employment is attainable for everybody. So all service systems that I'm going to be talking about today as a result of this report are really supposed to be looking at people and assessing for the least restrictive employment option that's possible in the community. And when we're talking about employment, I think it's always important to start with the definition. We're really looking at 20 hours a week at the prevailing wage, which means above minimum wage and the wage that is associated with doing that job. So, if it's a job at the bakery that's every other person applying for the job is going to be making 14 hours, that's what we're expecting for everybody with or without a disability to make. And we're looking at fully integrated jobs in the community using natural supports if possible. So with competitive employment, that definition of competitive employment is the gold standard. It's the ideal of what we're working for, but we know that there's a continuum of services that's available in our community. So we're working towards the the least restrictive option, but there are other options, and I want to acknowledge and talk about them all. So we do have individual employment or group employment. So group employment would be an enclave, up to 8 people in the same employment setting, getting support from a job coach, and that is a little bit more restrictive than the individual option. And we do have sheltered workshops and activity centers still in New York. We have about 9,000 people still in workshops in the state. So when we're looking at somebody, we realize that not everybody is going to enter the workforce after school in that far to the right competitive employment setting. But when we're working with people and we're setting goals, we're trying to push to the right, push to the least restrictive setting, so people are working independently and being fully integrated in the community. So I want to talk briefly about dignity of risk and how that applies to employment. So dignity of risk, and I would encourage you to go, if this isn't a concept that you're familiar with, go and Google it and learn more about it. It's really the idea that we can't let our fear or desire to keep or protect people with disabilities from making mistakes, that like everyone else, people with disabilities need to be empowered to make choices and live with consequences, really the right to take risks and the right to fail. And that, we talk about that across domains in the disability research field, but it applies to employment as well, that we really need to let people make mistakes, have opportunities just like everybody else. And, your first job might not work out, but that's true of me too. My job at the ice cream shop didn't go so well. So we need to let people take risks. And I think setting high expectations is really important. So I wanted to start with that as well. So thinking back to that slide, that graph slide, what are some of the challenges and barriers that people with disabilities experience in terms of employment? And lack of education and training is one of them. And so it's really important as we're thinking about what can we do to support employment. Opportunities for education and training are really important. And like I was saying, it's really important to start it early. So if you're on the webinar and have a son or daughter that's still in school, pushing for work-based learning type opportunities while they're still in school is really important and is a predictor of employment success down the road. We're mostly talking about jobs, but inadequate transportation is always a part of the conversation. I'll hear sometimes that Johnny can get a job, but there's no way for him to get there. So thinking about transportation and coming up with a plan early is going to be really important. And plan A, plan B, plan C, because, we know that things come up and you really need a couple different options to get to work, and it's really important. Accommodations are sometimes a challenge and barrier, both in terms of the person and the employer, not knowing what people need to be successful on different jobs. And the earlier, again, that we can start thinking about this, if your son or daughter has an OT support, what accommodations might they need on a workplace, and having that type of professional think about work and school is really smart and really forward thinking. We know that factors and stigma get in the way of employment opportunities and low expectations. I think what we've learned through all of our programs that we're involved in is if you set the bar high, people are going to reach it. And so, I would encourage families and professionals alike that start the expectation early that employment is a possibility and to dream big, and then work through the school setting. And if you're an agency person, I know we have some agency folks on the line, setting high expectations and then working programs around those expectations to help people meet their goals is really important. So because this was a webinar for the Rochester Regional Center for Autism Spectrum Disorder, I wanted to talk about ASD Specific Barriers. And these aren't true for all people with autism, but I just wanted to lay it out for all of us to start thinking about some additional barriers to employment that are a reality for some people. So interviewing is sometimes a challenge. So practicing interviewing skills early and often would be a recommendation of mine. Managing change is sometimes difficult. So when you're looking at jobs and thinking about employment, thinking about jobs that, if you're working with someone who struggles with change, looking for jobs that don't have a lot of unpredictability, that the same repetitive task over and over, those jobs exist. And it just takes some creativity and thinking when you're looking at jobs. Social difficulties with supervisors or coworkers, if you're working with someone who has some difficulties, maybe a job in the cafe where you're forced to talk to someone every 5 minutes isn't the best fit. So I just think it's important to think about these things when we're thinking about jobs for people. Behavioral difficulties, anxieties with stress about work are all research-based barriers to employment. So again, I keep talking about the importance of school to work transition, and I wanted to highlight that it is federally mandated that we prepare students with disabilities for the workforce. So if you're a school person or a family with a son or daughter that's still in school, know that schools are really they're mandated to help you think through this and transition into the workforce, whether it's immediately after school or if there's going to be college. The end goal really is working, and schools are mandated to help with the process. So vocational assessments, I started talking a little bit about this with the OTs and accommodations, but vocational assessments are really important, and they help gauge strengths and challenges. And I really think it's important to have this type of assessment done in school as you're working to develop transition goals, and it's important to engage multiple stakeholders. I've included a resource here, and I do believe that the slide deck is going to be available to all participants after the webinar here today. This resource is a really good one that came from Vanderbilt that kind of outlines the transition planning process if you're working with someone who's still in the school system. Like I keep saying, it's really important to engage in work-based learning opportunities. Career exploration and discovery is a really important process that needs to happen during transition. And for the folks that are on the line that are working with people who have left school, it's never too late. We're going to talk about the service system in New York State that does have opportunities for individuals with disabilities who have left school to engage in some of this as well. But I just would encourage you all to read through that resource on your own time and think about transition planning. We always say start early and think about it often. So transitioning a little bit, I wanted to talk about self-advocacy, and I wanted to start with a definition. Self-advocacy is an individual's ability to effectively communicate, convey, negotiate, or assert his or her own interests, desires, needs, and rights. It involves making informed decisions and taking responsibility for those decisions. So as we're talking about people with disabilities, we are often professionals and parents the fiercest advocates for the people that we love, but it's really important to develop self-advocacy skills with the people we're working with as well. So I'm going to show some resources that are available in the state that help develop self-advocacy, but I wanted to talk about why it's important related to employment. If somebody has higher self-esteem and awareness, they're going to be able to better advocate for themselves on the job. And, knowing your rights as an employee, knowing your strengths and talents, you're just going to be a better employee and be able to stick up for yourself and know when something's not right. If you're advocating for accommodations that could help you do the job better, that's really important. Disclosure is often a difficult conversation, and we're seeing that individuals who have gone through self-advocacy training or have really developed strong self-advocacy skills are having a better experience kind of with the disclosure process. I would mention one of our friends on Long Island has a blog, Words I Wheel By, and she wrote a blog about the difficulties of disability disclosure that I would recommend checking out. But she talks about disclosure as striking a balance, knowing what you need, but not sharing everything. And I think the stronger the self-advocate, this process, again, is just going to go a little bit easier. So as I mentioned, I wanted to share some self-advocacy resources. DDPC is the Developmental Disabilities Planning Council, and they fund a lot of opportunities for self-advocacy in the state. SANI's is a statewide organization for self-advocacy. Youth Power, I've got 2 different resources there. Youth Power, the general website, and there's also a training institute that they put on that I've included the link for. The Center for Disability Rights has a number of centers across the state. Partners in Policy Making is a training program that self-advocates can go through, and the Tayshoff Center at Syracuse has some resources as well. So I would just encourage you to think, this kind of ties back to the dignity of risk place, that we're really developing self-advocates who can advocate for themselves, not only in the workplace, but in general. So I wanted to share some of those resources. So we've been talking a lot about schools, but I'm going to transition into adult and the adult system. And I think, in school, I was talking about some of the federal laws that really make it so your son and daughter and students are entitled to certain services, but that's not the case in the adult world. And so it really is a shift. A lot of the state agencies that I'm going to be talking about, you have to become eligible for them. So in the disability field, people often call the after school the cliff. So you have all of these supports and services in schools, you're entitled to all of these things, and then when you kind of leave the school system, you're walking off a cliff into the adult system. But I'm here to tell you that there are a lot of different options, and it can be a little bit confusing, but there are resources and supports available to help families and professionals navigate all of them. But I think it's an important distinction, and it really helped me as I was learning the New York system to think about it this way, that in school you are entitled to many different services, but in the adult world, depending on the agency, and you have to become eligible to access certain services. So I'm just going to run through quickly the different service systems, and then based on some of the people that you work with or your son or daughter, I would encourage you they all have websites that have much more information than I'm going to go over here today. The first being the Office for People with Developmental Disabilities, or OPWDD. Their mission is to help people with developmental disabilities live richer lives. There is an eligibility process to go through to access services through OPWDD. They do have employment services, but they have more than that. It's really richer lives, and it means richer lives in terms of housing, community service access, again, employment services. So like I said, jumping on that website and learning more about what they offer. And they're a statewide agency. And so depending on where you are, there's different services available. And there are state-operated facilities, but much of what they do is offered through voluntary agencies. So again, it's going to depend on where you live. So I'm not going to get into the nitty-gritty, but I wanted to outline kind of them as a state agency. And again, there is an eligibility process to access the services through them. So I would encourage you to start thinking about that and asking questions early if you're working with someone younger. OMH is the Office of Mental Health. Again, they're a statewide system that does more than just employment, but they do have employment services, inpatient and outpatient programs, family care programs, and they have a very robust website that they're a county-based system. So depending on what county you're in, you can look and see what employment and other services they offer in the county. So jumping again on that website and checking out the services they have, I would highly encourage. So sometime, if you're not found eligible for OPWDD, it doesn't mean you can't get employment services from other agencies. And I think exploring all the different systems and agencies is the smartest way to look at the adult system, in my opinion. So those 2 agencies that I started with, like I said, are bigger than just employment, but there are employment-specific agencies that are statewide in New York. Access VR is the Adult Career and Continuing Education Services Vocational Rehabilitation Agency. They sit under the Department of Education, and their main goal is to assist people with disabilities to achieve and maintain employment. And they fund a number of different services depending on what you need to gain employment. And Commission for the Blind, the New York State Commission for the Blind, is basically the same agency, but they support people who are legally blind or visually impaired. So offering very similar career exploration, job development type services, and you can get on both their websites and see the different services that they fund, but these are employment specific agencies that are available in New York State. And again, you must be found eligible to access services from both of those agencies. So in the adult world, this is true in high school sometimes too, but job development and job coaching are words that you're going to hear. So I just wanted to outline as we start to think about agencies and services that they offer. These services are really important in terms of employment and can really help get a job and maintain employment over time. So these are some of the functions that job coaches or job developers do. It's not an exhaustive list, but I wanted to throw it up there it's helpful to know that, you know, you're not alone. If you're a parent or a school person and don't know a ton about the adult service system, there are a lot of services available to help your son or daughter or your student keep a job. So help with the job search, really serving as a mentor and motivator, helping set goals, both short and long term. You know, this is their profession, they're experts. They're really helpful in brainstorming and developing new ideas in terms of accommodations or, you know, the best job placement, and they have really good connections to businesses in the community. So I highly encourage you to be asking questions and develop a really strong relationship in the future or currently with the job coach. You know, they can help interview practice. We talked about some of the barriers specific to ASD interview practicing, providing feedback, you know, locating resources. They're really, I'll share some resources at the end, but people in this profession have a, you know, a really intense resource bank that I think is really critical to tap into in terms of employment. And there are other general strategies that you can access through job coaches or just in general to support success in employment. Environmental modifications, you know, if the lights are too bright in your office and you need them turned down, that's an appropriate accommodation you can ask for to really be successful in the job. You know, if you are walking into a job that needs more structure, asking for it to be successful is totally appropriate. Visual supports, you know, I've got an iPad here. If you need supports visually to help you do your job, I think that's totally appropriate to ask for. Task analysis really is breaking a skill down into smaller and more manageable parts, and that's something that both a job coach and natural supports can help with. I think providing feedback immediately and frequently is really important. You know, if you have a supervisor that 4 months into the job is saying, you know, you're going to be on an improvement plan because we're really not seeing what we need to, and that comes out of the blue, really thinking about the relationship you have with supervisors and, you know, asking for more immediate feedback, I think really so there's no surprises and you're working on problems as they come up really helps with retention over time. And then reinforcing positive behavior. I think if there's things that are happening in school that are working really well, sometimes the school system and the adult agencies don't talk that well together. And so if you're a family or school staff, making the link and sharing supports that work is really important because we do so much work in schools, and sometimes that gets lost in the adult agency, and we're doing relearning that really doesn't have to be done. So I would encourage the sharing of document and the sharing of knowledge across systems and across agencies. You know, sometimes we talk about alphabet soup and acronym soup. There's the IEP, but in the school world, there's the ISP and the IPE and the adult world, and there's a lot of similarities in those documents. So I would encourage you to keep those documents and have them talk to each other. And again, I would just encourage you to think about long-term supports that they're available in all of those agencies that I talked about. OPWDD offers extended supported employment. So there's, you know, you're not losing your job coach over time. If there's a need, there's an opportunity for extended job coaching over time. That is something that Access VR will also provide if needed. So I would just encourage you, if you're thinking that long-term supports are needed to maintain stability and retain jobs over time, that you know that that's a service that's available and you advocate for it. So I wanted to finish with sharing about a couple programs that are available in our area and share a web-based resource. MyPathNewYork.org is how we'll finish this, but Project Search is a program that we have in New York State that actually began at Cincinnati Children's Hospital in '96. So it's over 20 years old, and it's grown to over 450 programs internationally. It's a program that provides employability skills training to people with significant disabilities in a business. It also, as a program, encourages businesses to hire people with disabilities. So I wanted to kind of talk through the program and the different core model components of the program, and then encourage you to look into the program and ask questions. If you're still in school, ask questions to your district. If you're an adult agency, there are adult programs as well. It's a one-year program. Each program typically has 9 to 12 people with a variety of disabilities. It's not a disability-specific program. There's an instructor and job coaches built into the program model. There's 3 different internships, so it gets at some of that career exploration, but it's also learning soft skills and hard skills while you're doing the program. Employment isn't guaranteed, but the goal, really the outcome of the program is meant to be employment. So it's a year-long program where we're really looking at employment at the end. So if you're someone who has a son or daughter, or you're working with somebody who's really almost ready for a competitive job, this type of program has proven really successful because it was designed to address a number of the barriers that I talked about up front. So in the Rochester area, we have a program at Wegmans, and I won't go through all of the different partners because this will be available on the slide deck, but there is a Wegmans hosts a Project Search program in Rochester. The University of Rochester Medical Center has a program here, also a high school program. So we're really looking at last year of high school eligibility. The City of Rochester with the Rochester City School District has one. And then we have an adult program at the Del Monte Hotel Group. So if you have interest in any of those programs, my contact information is available at the end, and I would be happy to connect you to people to learn more. And I also have included the website for more information about Project Search. But you know, Project Search isn't right for everyone, and there are a number of different programs available and work-based learning opportunities available across the state. So I would just encourage you to explore different opportunities similar to this one that really allow people to try different work-based learning type opportunities, again, early and often. So other parts of the state, I wanted, Rochester Regional Center covers a wider area than just Rochester. So SUNY Upstate Medical Center has a program, a high school program that's a partnership with the Syracuse City School District. Syracuse University also has a program. It's an adult program, so there's both high school and adult programs in Syracuse. We have one in Geneva at the Finger Lakes Health. That's also an adult program. And a rather new program that opened up this year at Ira Davenport in Bath with Greater Southern Tier BOCES. It's a high school transition program with the Arc of Steuben. So we're growing. There's, like I said, there's 19 programs across the state. We know that Project Search isn't available to everyone, but the outcomes are really strong. I started, again, referring back to those graph slides. Nationally and in New York State, the disability employment rate is around 30%. And in New York, we're graduating people from school into employment at about a 65% success rate. And that's at 16 hours or more at the prevailing wage. So this program is almost double that of the employment rate for people with disabilities. So it's a really successful program. We've been working for 10 years in New York with this program, so encourage all of you to learn more, and I would be happy to answer any and all questions. So I'm going to spend our last couple of minutes reviewing this website, mypathnewyork.org. I reviewed very quickly 4 very large state agencies that offer a number of services and all have different eligibility criteria, so we know it's really difficult to navigate, and we heard that. So all of those partners work together to build this website to help families and individuals navigate the service system as they left schools and went into the adult world. So today I'm just going to walk you through the website, but again, would encourage you to jump on the website and fill it out yourselves and see kind of how it can help you. So bear with me while I jump over there. So this is the landing page of mypathnewyork.org. It is a website that is free. Anybody can use it. School staff can use it. Parents can use it. Individuals with disabilities can use it. Agency staff can use it. So we built the language and built the website to be able to be used by anyone. And there is on this link how the website works. There's a demo of the website. So what I'm walking you through today is available in video form for you to watch at a later date, or if you want to share this with anybody else. It's kind of a how to use the website that's available there at all times. There is up here on the right, you can enlarge text and make it smaller. There isn't a screen reader, but the website is compatible with screen reading software. So if that's something that's needed, the website is accessible in that way. So jump right in and get started. So with the website, you can create an account or you can go in as a guest. There's no difference in how you interact with the website based on how you go in. Just if you create an account, it stores all of your information in there. Whereas if you go in as a guest, every time you access the site, you would have to redo content that you've already done. So that's really the only benefit to creating an account, is that you don't have to redo sessions. It won't let you skip over sessions. The website was designed and built in a very purposeful way where there's 4 sessions of content and you were supposed to do each session in sequential order. But if you go in as a guest, you have to redo sessions every time. But if you go in and create an account, you wouldn't have to redo sessions. We do have a link here that talks about our privacy policy. The website does live on the University of Rochester Medical Center server, so it's as protected as all of our patient information. So we don't ask a lot of sensitive information anyways, but rest assured that if you're using this site, your information is safe. So we're going to go in here. Actually, we're not. We're going to go back. I'm going to go into an already established account because it's easier. Account login. And if you forget your password, you can click here and it will resend to whatever email you use. So you do need an email to create an account. It will resend to whatever email you used to reset your password. So that option is there. So the way the website is built is it's a series of yes/no questions. And it compiles the way that you've answered all of the questions and spits out an individualized report for you. So the first session of content is really helping you navigate all of those different adult service agencies that I was talking about, and based on who you are, get you connected to the right agency, again, based on where you're at on your path to employment. So the whole goal of this site is to connect to services and supports that help people on their path to employment, thus the name MyPath. So session 1 asks some education information, it asks some Access VR, Commission for the Blind questions, and then it asks OPWDD questions. So I'm going to pretend that I am a student in school when I'm answering these questions. So yes, I'm still in school. It has a feature built in, these underlined words. There's some more information to help you be able to answer the questions if you're not sure what those words mean. So we worked with partners to identify some commonly confused terms. So if you see an underlined word, it means that if you hover your mouse over it, you're going to get some more information. So do you have an IEP? Yes. Will you graduate with a local or region's diploma? If I'm in 10th grade and I'm not sure what I'm leaving school with, it's totally appropriate to say not sure. You don't need to know certain answers to certain questions to interact with the website. And it's kind of a smart website where if you were to play with this website a couple of different times and answer it in different ways, you're going to get different questions. So instead of a checklist that worked for everyone, we really wanted to make this individualized. So it's really going to ask you relevant questions based on the way that you're answering questions. Then it asks about the CDOS commencement credential, which is a career development studies type credential now available that replaced the IEP diploma. So again, it's okay to be not sure if that's what you're going to get. So those are the only education questions that we ask. Then it gets into vocational rehabilitation. So it asks, are you legally blind or visually impaired? If you say yes here, you're going to get connected to the Commission for the Blind. If you say no, you're going to get connected to vocational rehabilitation. As I mentioned earlier in the presentation, both of those agencies offer very similar services, but based on your disability, you're going to be eligible for either or. So I'm going to say, no, I'm not. And you'll see here, it asks me Access VR questions. If I had said yes, it kicks you to Commission for the Blind. So like I said, we're going to go no. So it asks me if I've applied for Access VR services. So if you're somebody that's already applied for services, it's not going to tell you to go and apply because you've already done that. So have you applied for VR? If I'm saying yes, it's going to ask you follow-up questions, but if I had said no, it wouldn't have asked me these questions. So have you received a letter saying that you're eligible for services? If you say no, it's going to tell you how to reach out to them to find out if you're eligible. So the resources that you're going to get in your report are based on how you answer the question. So we'll say no. Then it asks a question about OPWDD, the same type of logic here. If you're already eligible, it's not going to tell you to call and go through the eligibility process. Or if you're not eligible and you were found not eligible, it's not going to tell you to go and redo that whole process because we know it's difficult. So it really is trying to meet people where they're at. So if I said yes, it's going to ask you about an orientation session and whether or not you went there. It's going to ask if you have your preliminary ISP, and again, these are some underlined words, so it gives you more information about what that is. It's okay to say not sure. It asks you if you have a Medicaid service coordinator. If all of these words make no sense to you, don't worry about it. OPWDD really walks you through this process, and we know Medicaid service coordination is changing in the next couple of months. Some of us may know this, and this website will change based on what New York State is offering. So it currently talks about Medicaid service coordination, but as that gets phased out and transitions into CCOs, this website is going to reflect those changes. And the same is true for any organization and agency. So again, it takes the way that you've answered all of those questions, compiles all of that information, and spits out a report and tells you different steps to take, and it connects you to different resources, all geared towards employment. So this AskJan, the Job Accommodation Network, is a resource that talks about workplace accommodations for different disability categories. I can't remember the way I answered the VR question, but it links you to district offices, so you can find the district office for your county and get connected to information there. This is a statewide website. We're never going to link you to a homepage of a website. We've done all of that navigation for you, so you're getting linked to different district offices based on where you are. And again, OPWDD links you to the front door website, so you have information and numbers to call to get your questions answered. You have the ability to print this, download it to your desktop, or email it. So if your son or daughter is doing this at school, they can email it home, and vice versa. If you're doing it with your son or daughter at home and you want to email it to your teacher or professionals at school or agencies, you can do that. So that's how the whole website works. Like I said, there's 4 sessions of content. This first one is really an agency navigation content session. Session 2 is called Preparing for Work. And it's it's questions, it's the same format, yes, no, not sure, and it asks, do you have a resume? Do you have work references? Your mom is not an appropriate work reference. Businesses don't want to call mom and dad to find out if you're a stand-up human. Do you have a work-ready email? Do you know your password to your email? Because I can't tell you the number of jobs I've seen fly by because we forget emails, and 2 weeks go by, and an offer for an interview is just sitting in an inbox. So it tries to navigate all of those different work-related preparation type activities for you in session 2. Session 3 is talking about how Access VR and OPWDD funding work together. They both fund employment services, among other things, for OPWDD. And so it helps you navigate those two service systems and think about how you can get services from both agencies to help you down your path to employment. And then the final session of content is really a financial literacy benefits management session. I will pull back up the home page. Oops, that's not good. Let's see. It starts with a dream board sequence, so it really is wanting to meet people at, what do you want in your life? Do you want to buy a car someday? Do you want to live on your own? Do you want to start a family? Do you want a cell phone? All of those different things that kind of come with adulthood. It asks you those questions and then kind of gets down to reality. Okay, all of those things, sometimes, most of the time, always cost money. And how are we going to pay for it? A job is often your answer to that. So it starts from a place of what do you want in your life, and then it walks through some financial literacy, budgeting type sessions, and then it gets into benefits management if that's something that's appropriate for the family. And so it talks about Medicaid, it talks about SSI, Social Security income. It navigates all of those different things. We had a subject matter expert build this content for us. And again, that is going to change as things change in our state. And then it finishes kind of the website with, okay, you've gone through this whole session or this whole website of content. Are you really ready for work? These are the people that can help you. There is a benefits calculator that can help you think if you're a family that is receiving SSI, we know that when you go back to work, your SSI is going to go down if you start receiving a paycheck. So you would, this really lets you look at, okay, if I start making $500 a month and my SSI check is $600, what's going to happen to my SSI check when I start to work? So it does the math for you, and it's telling you that, yes, your check is going to go down by $207. Your new check amount is $392. But if you add that to your wage, you're walking away with $892, which is $292 more than what you started with. So it's a really good tool to start the conversation. If you were to talk to anybody who is kind of a financial planner, we know that there's a lot that goes into this, but this is, like I said, a really good tool to start the conversation. It links you to an SSI benefits navigator to talk about your individual situation, but that resource is available on the homepage. And like I said, it's a really good conversation for families to start to think about it, and for schools and agencies to start the conversation, because we know it's a difficult one. So that is the website in a really, really quick version, and I didn't go through the whole thing. So like I said, I would encourage you to go through that on your own time. I wanted to finish with some resources. So when you get the slide deck, there are some resources here. So Department of Labor has career centers that can help. Some of them have disability navigators, not all. I don't believe our Monroe County has a disability navigator, but others do in the state. There are independent living centers. This is the link to statewide different independent living centers that do have resources available to you. State Ed has special education parent centers that can help navigate all of this. I linked to our project search. I linked to the national website and the New York State website, which overviews all of the programs that are available here. And I did not talk today about college experience programs. but our Institute for Innovative Transition here at the University of Rochester they are the experts there, so I wanted to make sure that I linked there. If you were hoping for some of that information, I realize I didn't give it to you, but that is a link that can start kind of the research process. So I will leave you with, I know that was a lot of information and it's probably a lot to digest, and I talked really fast, but I hope that you can review it and kind of take what you've learned and turn it into action. So if you have any questions or anything comes up, please don't hesitate to contact me. I think I tried to leave some time for questions today. We have another 10 minutes, so anything you have, I'd be happy to answer those now. But in the future, don't hesitate to email or call, and I would be happy to help. So thank you so much for your attention.
Kate, thank you so much for this today. You are an incredible resource to our community, and it was exciting to see the website and really how it helps to digest a lot of different state supports that were offered. So folks, please, we welcome your questions, your comments through the chat box. And in the meantime, we do have participants often request a certificate of attendance for attending our webinars. And if you are interested in receiving one of those, when you receive the email this afternoon with the link to the evaluation survey for your feedback, just there's a question on there that you can request a certificate of attendance, and then we'll email one out to you. Again, today's webinar was recorded, and everybody will be receiving a link to that as well as the slides. So we do know that this was a lot of information within an hour, and you know, we want to make sure that you have this content and that you have Caitlin's information to reach out with any questions or comments. So let's check our chat. We'll give folks a couple minutes. Feel free to send us questions in the chat box, or just reach out after if there's something that you think of after we close out today's webinar. We aren't seeing any questions or comments come through, but please don't hesitate to contact us in the future, or if you think of something. We'll stick around for a couple more minutes, but I'd just like to thank everybody again for taking the time out of your busy day to call in to our webinar. Let's see. Oh, thank you. A couple different chats coming through. Perfect. And one last time, thank you so much, Caitlin, for taking the time to share this with us today. We are so incredibly grateful, and I wish everybody a great evening. Thanks so much.